Greetings and welcome to this catch-up. My name's Craig Waters and we're here in Melbourne and I've got a very special guest. So, special guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Craig. My name's Rick Vanover and I'm a product strategy specialist at Veeam Software. And I'm lucky to be down here in Australia, and we're also going over to New Zealand. And I was really happy to have this opportunity, Craig, to meet with you and do the vCatchup.
Thanks, Rick. Really great to have you in Melbourne. How are you finding Melbourne then? Any highlights for you for Melbourne? Or?
The coffee. I love the coffee here in Melbourne and all of Australia. Every cup is better than the cup before. I don't know if I'm going to be able to function at home. I'm really enjoying it. My team here is a great host. I've met a lot of great people, some of which is great. I've known on Twitter, like, you and I, for example, it's great to kind of cross paths in the face-to-face realm. And, I've had a great time.
Cool, brilliant. Yeah. So we'll jump into the questions. I've got 5 or 6 questions that I wanted to ask you. Similar sort of format to what I normally do. So I'll jump straight into it. Yeah. So what brings you to Melbourne specifically? And with regard to things like backup and virtualization, how do you think we compare to other countries?
Well, that's a good question. So first part, what brings me to Melbourne? At work, we're doing at Veeam, we're doing a road show. So we're going to 2 cities here in Australia and then 2 cities over in New Zealand. Basically spreading the good word. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, when it comes to virtualization, this is a region that really is ahead of the curve. Okay, adoption rates are high. The convincing doesn't need to happen so much. Not so much in the States, but other geographies. I have a global role. You see the whole spectrum. But I think Australia and New Zealand especially, they have their heads on right, and they're going the right direction, with VMware and related and similar virtualization technologies. So I think comparatively, this region is definitely in the right spot, doing the right thing.
Do you think then that's related as well to the demographics, so like the size of the country and the number of companies that, and I guess then there's also the size of the companies as well. We joked before, we were talking about SMB and what SMB means in Australia compared to the US.
Yeah, I don't think it compares or is created from a specifically defined segment, and I think it's really just mindset. I think that really drives part of the adoption, but then mindset may start it, but then peer adoption really leads to the next wave, and really resources like vMugs are the best way to really garner support for peer adoption. So in your experience with the vMug, that. So I think that everything works together to point it upward, and I think Australia, New Zealand is a good region as an example to see how that's done well.
Cool, thanks for that. I mean, that kind of leads us on really well to the next question as well. Yeah. So like Rick, obviously I'm a vMug leader, and we talked about the vMug briefly there as well. But what kind of stuff do you do personally for getting involved and supporting the vMug, and what kind of commitments have you got in store for your community?
Sure. So
for 2013.
Yeah. So my engagement really is as a sponsor at Veeam, and actually we just wrapped up the first half of 2013, and I actually had a really cool report. So I put a lot of work into the content that I do at the vMugs. Actually, I got to do some. I think I went to 4 or 5 in the States. But also I wrote some content that some of my peers in the company got to present. So basically we latched on a big, at least in the States, a big block of sponsorship for the user conferences. And we, as a sponsor, we were entitled to a breakout session. And I put a lot of work into that content. And you know what? The last thing I know that people want is to go hear a commercial. So I always try to interleave my vMug content that I prepare and sometimes deliver. I always interleave practical tips. Everything's about practical tips. Be it how you can get more out of your VMware investment, how you can even leverage some of the Veeam tools that are free. Believe it or not, chances are you might already have a backup. But you know what? You're welcome to jump into our session. I would be happy to show you how even a free offering can show you how to do it. And here's the trick, Craig. I actually showed not so much my things, but what other people are saying. So in my vMug track that I did in the States, I broke out like 4 or 5 specific examples where other VMware users were using a Veeam technology, and where possible, I'd even say how they used it, or they could have used it with the free edition. And usually they were in the form of a tweet. So just be careful if you tweet anything for Veeam. I may ask you if I can repeat it. But I did ask these people if I could reproduce the tweets. But basically, I said, look, here's what this person's doing. This is what they're using this tool for. And by the way, the free edition will even take you this far along that route. You know, because I realize everybody has investments in backups. I mean, I'm sure I'd love to change people on how they do their backups. But when it comes to vMugs, you know, it's a fire hose of information. But I really want people to walk out with practical tips. You know, and Veeam as a sponsor, we've got a message to deliver too. So I think I do a really good job of balancing that. I was really happy though, because I got the first half report of top attended sessions worldwide, and I was thrilled by the number of Veeam sessions that did well, because you know, I put a lot of work into content, I put a lot of work into the title, and it showed by the report.
Yeah, that's great, Rick. And look, you know, I must say I was really looking forward to asking that particular question with yourself and Veeam as a whole, because you guys really do get what vMug's about, and you've been a very big endorser of the vMug and supporter of the vMug. You know, a lot of the events that we have in locally in Australia, you know, Veeam's always there. You know, you understand what vBeers is about, and you know, I had the fortune to go to VMworld for the first time last year in the US, and I attended the Veeam party, and wow, you know, I think I remember some of it.
Just wait till you see this one. This year.
Look, you know, so it's a pleasure for me to I get a chance to speak to you and like just say, you know, like, thanks for understanding vMug and thanks for getting behind it, because it's a really important piece. It's a really important opportunity locally to get the stuff that you guys do in the US and bring it here local, and like having people like yourself come to Melbourne and talk in Melbourne as well. But that real catalyst of like understanding what Veeam's about and actually like getting, you know, face to face with you guys, you know.
And you know, important. The community is a big thing. It's always been important. Like my team, I work for Doug Hazelman, VM Doug on Twitter. You know, our focus is to really watch the pulse, and I put a lot of effort into knowing what, you know, the community is up to, knowing what our customers and partners and prospects and end users, we know what they are dealing with in terms of challenges and what they want. You know, we don't always have the answer, I get that, but I definitely want to know what they're up to, what they're thinking, and investments in the community, never a bad idea.
No, it's great. It's great to hear. Yeah, we appreciate your support.
Yeah, not a problem.
Keep on going, man. Yeah.
Stay green.
Stay green. Yeah. Well, I've got green as well, but anyway, there we go.
I forgot my green.
There we go. Yeah. So, look, next question then. I just wanted to really step back a bit and just, you know, do a bit of blue skying and just like talk about what do you think 2013 has in store of us from a tech perspective. You know, so. What would you like to see? You know, any predictions perhaps? I'm trying to get a perspective from Rick and not necessarily from Veeam.
Yeah, sure. Because I always look at the big picture, and really what it comes down to, Craig, is I think there's two areas where big changes are coming. One is networking, and the other is non-rotational storage, whether that be memory-based, flash-based, SSD-based. I don't really know what it's going to hold, but I really think it's going to be severely impactful in a positive way in terms of changes that we're going to have to deal with. You know, what I'd like to see happen really is I/O bottlenecks go away, and I think that really storage, so non-rotational storage, will help us address that, whether it be, you know, a whole change out of everything, wholesale replacement. I don't have the money for that. I don't know about you. But something in the middle that, you know, magically helps prioritize and sort it all out. That's, you know, that's where I'm really looking at. And then back to the network, you know, data center and beyond. Mobile, you know, ubiquitous connectivity. I've been wanting that one for a long time. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But those are the areas I'm watching the most.
Because you know, Rick, we're all technologists at heart, you know, and we all like to, you know, we've got our gadgets and our tools that we use every day to do our job, sort of thing. So, you know, it's interesting. Everybody's pretty much got a perspective on where they think technology should be going and stuff. I mean, you know, I mean, for yourself, I mean, what's the main tool that you kind of use for your day-to-day productivity? Like, from a, you know, is there a gadget that you're using that you're pretty hot with at the moment?
You know, I've taken a agnostic approach. It's kind of weird. I get a lot of flack for it, honestly. So, Windows PC, iPad, tablet, Android phone, right? What matters is access to my data and performance of the apps, and really every app I need is available on every platform. So I'm very much a device agnostic person, but honestly I use a lot of Dropbox, I use a lot of course, you know, whatever the standard list of work apps are, which for me is usually just email. Hootsuite, I love Hootsuite, especially to, you know, manage Twitter and things like that, especially for work. So, you know, I'm not really much of a heavy lifter guy. I want to play with OpenStack. I want to play with, the new version of this and that, especially around vSphere technologies. But I don't have one killer app that is the secret sauce to the Rickatron mojo.
Yeah. I'm just always interested in what people do, and how they make their how they make their daily day go by sort of thing, and how they get stuff done.
Yeah, but I make sure that I don't lock into any OS. So that's why, like I said, I've got all three covered there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And look, jumps onto the next question. You mentioned it there about networking and data center networking. So, it's kind of old news now, really. But VMware acquired a company called Nicira. They paid a lot of money. The company had about 120 employees, and they're really going to work on this now. They've assembled a dream team. They've got people like Brad Hedlund, Scott Lowe in there. What do you think? What do you think virtualizing networking is going to do for us? How do you think it's going to change? And I guess really as well from a backup perspective, from the core business of Veeam. How do you think that's going to impact Veeam?
Well, I'll start with the first part of the question of, what does it really mean? VMware is going to go down the route of making this product or this software-defined networking space. They're going to define. They're going to deliver options and ideally performance improvements, ease of use, right? That's what it's all about. So removing barriers, whether or not that involves, ripping out, lots of investments, I'm not sure. It's a learning opportunity for me. But what I am focused on is how can we do things better, right? How can we separate without more ports? How can we, make my job as an infrastructure admin easier? When I find those benefits, right, that'll really tell me that investment is the right way to go. Now, you're right, they are bringing in the right talent, and that's really exactly what that space needs. Right? I was talking to Scott, actually at the vMode user conference in Columbus, Ohio, my city. I was talking to him, I guess it was last month, in May, actually a month and a half or so. Talking to him about that. And actually, him and I had a great chat outside in the sun about it. And I'm excited. I got to watch the space. And he's actually putting a huge effort on his own practice to learn a lot, right? Because networking's my biggest gap. The core 4 resources, everybody gets CPU and memory, but when it comes to networking, smack. I've learned a lot of storage over the years, but not so much networking. So, it's definitely a watch this space type of approach, and I'm excited for it. And secondly, to the Veeam side, if that can open up doors to do things faster and deliver more options and speak to additional use cases, hey, we're all for it, And at the end of the day, we have to support the platform. So that's, Veeam's take on it. So when we go there, as a technology community, Veeam should be right there with it.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of fairly transparent, isn't it? Because your product's software based.
It can be. You never know.
Like another point there as well. Just on the networking piece, I think it's really important to think about the fact that we're all becoming these faceted engineers, or in a customer space, in a vendor space, wherever. But it's not now about being a specialist. It's kind of almost becoming a generalist now, isn't it? And then the fact that you have to have those disciplines. You talked about the compute, the storage, the networking, and like kind of I think for a lot of a lot of people that becoming a virtualization administrator has kind of made you get along over the storage space, but then networking has always been this piece that is kind of offset to another team. But as data center virtualization becomes more prolific, the reality is that you need to have all those skills. And so, do you think that the networking is kind of like the dark horse in the room, where it's not been as deconstructed and recomposed based upon virtualization? Do you think it's kind of an integral part to this whole software-defined data center, or whatever we're going to call it?
I want to take the approach of what we've had happen in storage, and I look at many of my people I deal with. I mean, I work for Veeam now, so I'm not really an end user, but we still have storage admins. But the thing is, we go into those conversations with those people knowing what to talk about. And when we look at a platform like VMware in particular, we can delegate access. That's not a problem. There's very flexible permissions models. So the storage admins, if they need to, can admin storage, but the VMware admins can really know what to ask for and know what to talk to them about. I think the same is going to happen in networking, right? So we're going to equip the infrastructure admin, and you know what, all the way down to the smallest of organization, they might be able to do it all themselves. But I think really it's going to break down barriers and open up channels of communications and do things better at the end, because both parties are talking about the same thing, looking at the same console, administering and deploying resources, storage, network, compute, whatever, the same way.
I mean, you are finding that, you know, there's more and more converged solutions now, and so in effect, and I've gone through this in a customer space where that converged solutions actually then dictated the culture of the organization and how the support teams made up and how they interact, because they've had to, you know, we have to involve network and we have to involve storage, because otherwise we're just not going to get stuff done, because the solution's so integrated to those components that you need to be across all that space to actually be able to manage it and maintain it and operate it on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Interesting times, I think.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of hats to wear, I think.
Absolutely.
Cool, yeah. Okay, so next one, just around the home lab.
Oh yeah, the home lab. I love the home lab.
Do you have a home lab, Rick?
I do.
Do you get your hands on the tools,
Yeah, I have a home lab and a work lab, actually. I'm lucky, I do have both. Cool. So let's tell you about the home lab. So I've got a Dell server, an HP server, a Think server, and a laptop converted to a server. That's the one with the SSD. I've got two Drobos and a Netgear, and I've got a basic network switch. I've got about 60 VMs, backing them up with Veeam. I'm running 3 of those hosts as VMware, one of them as Hyper-V, and I've got vCenter, vCloud Director, vShield Security Manager. I don't have SCVMM, but that's my lab. A little bit of everything.
That's cool. Yeah. And what kind of stuff? You know, it's in your house, I guess. So you just get there whenever you need to. Have you got a man cave kind of thing? Is it?
I do actually.
Yeah,
so
cool.
we just moved, and I've commandeered one of the bedrooms as my home office.
Brilliant.
And it has a closet. Funny story though. I actually ran out of. Effectively, the room got too hot in the closet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But you know, closets it's a closed closet from a bedroom. And it's just big enough for my little pile. It's on a little table. But it was too hot. I'm like, oh, smack. What am I going to do? So it's got a drop ceiling. I don't know what you call a drop ceiling. It's like
a false roof.
Yeah, false roof. Little tiles you can lift up.
Okay,
It's exactly the dimension of a box fan. So I lifted up one tile and I strapped in a box fan as an exhaust system. So all that just goes up into the roof.
Pull the hot air out,
Yeah, poor man's
shower, I guess, really.
Poor man's data center as a service.
Excellent,
exactly.
Cool, yeah.
So it works out good. I can get to it. In fact, it's really become kind of a requirement for me because, you know, at least in the Veeam story, you know, we're in between versions, so I got to demo GA, demo the future. So it's just a little bit easier to show it on different labs.
Yeah, and is that the primary purpose of your lab then? Is for demos and stuff like that?
No, the home lab actually primarily is for me as the blogger. So I still write for Virtualization Review. I write the Everyday Virtualization blog there. And, you know, I do the Veeam Community Podcast. I also write for Tech Republic. Sometimes HP lets me guest post on some of their things, Canada Cloud. A lot of different websites I'll guest post on. And that's really me as a technologist. You know, not all of those are about Veeam. I still try to build my own personal brand through that. And the home lab is really the appropriate resource to do the extracurriculars on.
Last question on it, but what kind of stuff non-Veeam are you actually doing in your lab right
Non
now?
Veeam, the skunkworks. Really, it would be what I do for my personal blogging. So
what are you talking about in your personal blog?
Well, really, like how to. No worries. How to tips and tricks for VMware and Hyper-V. You know, that's really in storage and networking and guest operating systems. And
so is that you logging, you know, your day-to-day, I did this and I found this didn't work?
You know, my most popular blog post from last year, I'll take that as an example, was Windows Server 2012 deduplication, how and where to tweak. So I've been using it, so like these are the little things I've tweaked and all, and I wrote a blog post about it.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I use it for.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. It's good that you've got your hands on the tools, you know.
Yeah, you got, and I have to take it outside of Veeam sometimes, just because that builds me as an evangelist to walk up to someone and talk to them about things other than Veeam, and that'll help just build me as a community person that way.
I'm kind of just going down the road myself. I just bought a one of the HP ProLiant microservers, so I'm just like decking that out, ready to go. So not a big lab, but just more so I can get the software on there and I can actually start, going through some of the software and stuff.
Right,
so
absolutely.
I'm hoping to do my vCaps and then hopefully VCX
you need a lab for that, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the plan there. But cool. Thanks for sharing that, Rick. I
no worries.
So the last question really was, this is kind of usually like an open thing around something specific to Veeam or your technology and stuff like that. And we had a chat before, and I really wanted to concentrate about really about Veeam's backup and recovery product, and you guys are kind of testament to software defined. You guys have been running a backup product and a software solution for way before anybody else even considered it, and you kind of landed in this situation now, and I'm sure it's not luck, I'm sure it's through pure hard work, where you've got a best of breed technology now. You come into release 7, and I coined a phrase there, software defined backup, which there's a queue of software defined phrases there, so we won't go into that too much, but really in effect that's kind of what you guys have done. You've got, I know it's more than backup, but it really does. The real underlying piece of it is that you're not dependent upon the hardware and the infrastructure underneath it. So what do you think companies, what kind of challenges do you think companies face with backup, and what do you think Veeam's solving in those challenges?
Thank you for those kind words. We do invest in the community and invest in really the ecosystem to deliver what we believe what it wants. But what we're trying to do, it's our latest theme, but it makes perfect sense, is deliver modern data protection built for virtualization that's powerful, easy to use, and affordable. And I think that really speaks to the needs of what we want. We want robust recovery options, but we don't want complicated setups. We don't want to be burdened with things like agents or proprietary hardware or any of the other slew of things that we've had to deal with over the years. So Veeam has started as a niche and really grown to really deliver a very accepted practice for virtualizing and protecting virtual machines within vSphere. So, and that's really the central theme of what our V7, which is due out this quarter, will do. And I'll just share one big thing with you, Craig, because the one thing I want everybody to know, well, first of all, we're supporting tape. Okay. Secondly,
get that one out of the way.
Okay, get that out of the way. But the second thing is we're introducing this thing called a backup copy job, and this is so deep in features and technology. But the real thing to remember, Craig, is it gets backups off-site. No, it does not just copy VBKs. It writes VM restore points. It can do that with optional GFS, grandfather, father, son, retention, right? So you don't have to run multiple jobs. Keep that backup window small. And we can even do that transfer with built-in WAN acceleration. A lot of technology around that feature, but it really speaks to a serious benefit of getting data off-site. And that's what it's all about, protection. Those requirements don't go away. Software-defined backup, the cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, you still have to have protection management, and infrastructure still can go wrong. And I guess I could talk for 3 hours about that, but I'll just send a shout out to go to veeam.com. Can't miss it. It's right at the top of this page. You can find everything about V7 there.
You used a really, I just picked up that term you used, because I've been talking backup here, but you used that term data protection. And I think that's kind of there's a really important piece behind that, because I think that's kind of the shift, the things that are changing in our industry around this idea of what backup is and what it actually purports to do. Because look, traditionally and historically, and you mentioned tape before, because that's kind of a big point of this, is, really backup's been like the long-term data retention piece for organizations. And I think we're coming into a phase now where, that it's kind of getting deconstructed now. So data protection is really about operational recovery. It's not necessarily about long-term data retention. It's more this, and I've been floating this concept around with people about the idea that what I want is to be able to operationally recover a point in time of a system, of an application, of a server, its infrastructure. But what I don't want to confuse that with, and that's kind of what's happened historically, is I don't want to confuse that with is that I need an archival long-term retention mechanism to keep that data long-term, because I might have some kind of, regulatory requirement to keep that information long-term. And I think what's happened in the past is that people have gone down this road of, it's all one thing and we're going to tackle it as all one problem. Whereas in actual fact, what we've got there is we've actually got different components. We've got like we've got that operational recovery requirement. My application's failed for whatever reason. I need to get it back up and running within my RPO, RTO, whatever, within my, within an acceptable time with the organization. I have a specific tool that provides that recovery capability.
Right.
But then in the background, I've also got this other regulatory requirement that I must keep this information long term. Do you see these things panning out as being separate entities moving forward, and that it's really then down to organisations to reconsider how they're architecting their backup and realising that there are separate components that actually need different pieces? I mean, backup's always, it's a complicated thing. It's always been a difficult. I've been the backup person in an organisation before, and man, you're just treading wheels and spending a lot of time doing not a lot, really. So,
well, you used the word reconsider, and we've had to encourage people to think differently, but this is what I've been saying recently, and I think that it kind of everyone can relate to. We've invested in an incredible infrastructure platform with vSphere. We can do amazing things. We can let users and departments, tenants, organizations, whatever, deploy things in as little as 5-10 minutes. Why should we still be at the mercy of a 6, 8, 10 hour, 4 hour recovery window, right? Should we not have the same expectation of our data protection and recovery approach that we do for our administration and deployment approach, right? Just at the capabilities of these platforms. Now, that being said, that works great for the near moment, right? Just recover to this point in time. Reality sets in, we still have a lot of requirements that we have to deal with, right? We want to talk to healthcare, financial services, insurances, whatever. So in that sense, flexibility has to come into play. And the one feature I spoke to hopefully can help with that, tape and then backup copy job. And then really, we've drawn up options. People have to have options. We can't just say you have to do it this way. This is the tool. Historically, Veeam didn't have all the options. We didn't have tape. Right? People were able to get Veeam backups to tape, but it wasn't exactly a seamless orchestrated solution. That's changed with V7, and it speaks to the needs to allow people to reconsider and then also draw up what they need to meet their requirements, because the requirements don't change, right? No. Nobody's going to come in and say, oh, wow, you've got this great virtualization thing. You don't need to keep it for a year. No, that's not the case, right? So, I realize that, and I think that people can still get the benefits of a modern approach to data protection, yet still meet these requirements. And finally, I think that, the flexibility is key, and I think everybody, you got to give these tools a try. Give Veeam a try. That's pretty easy to do. But once you see the light, I think you can.
So it's all about options, really. In the
exactly.
day,
yeah, we have to be flexible. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Yeah. Look, thanks for your time, Rick. Appreciate it.
No problem, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much for coming on, yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.